The stories and lore surrounding Mary Magdalene have always interested me. Whether it is the story of her living her life out in solitude in a cave or wandering in the desert until her clothing wore thin and she grew a thin layer of fur. And I don't know if it's based in fact or fiction, but it really doesn't matter very much to me. Because what I find really fascinating in the stories is the theme of a universal human emotion. And that is the kind of grief from loss and betrayal that almost borders on madness. As I did research for this Mary Magdalene painting and others that I completed, because it's not a new theme, I often came across pictures of her covered in fur, particularly in the Renaissance era art. And I was fascinated by this notion of a woman being stricken by grief and wandering until she grew fur. Because I think there is, like I said, something really universal about that level of grief and suffering that people can relate to. And I think that's what keeps her story alive in our minds. I didn't just paint this painting. I also created the fur costume using National Fiber Technologies fur. The same folks that created the fur for Chewbacca's costume, for example. So first, I created the fur costume so that it could be worn, and then I found a location to photograph myself coming out of a cave. There's a whole series of these paintings that I've completed, including some performance pieces, a lot of photographs, and just general inspiration as I dealt with a lot of my own emotions going through this process. Most of the material is actually located behind a paywall. These are things that I share as far as the reference photos and performance art surrounding my projects are often in places like Patreon or OnlyFans. They're not for the general public. But if you'd like to see more of my work, you can always check out my website, Patreon, OnlyFans. All of the links for all of my work are included in the description below. Thank you so much for joining me for this time-lapse painting of Mary's Lament.